I know that, yeah. And I think taxonometry drawing is a really cool first and last name, but likely not going to happen. I would suggest to you to really follow this documentation. It makes it really easier for me because if I have 100 students and 50 of them are taxonometry drawings, yeah, it would be a bit tough to discern who is getting which grade. Just want to bring this up. Second thing is one thing I noticed, or another thing I noticed a lot of things when you are doing your submission, and my apologies, I feel it, there's what we have at university, just also update on those sharing files and stuff like this. We have OneDrive at the university, but since it's not working properly on the Mac yet, they're not really enforcing it at all. So they basically told me in IT I shouldn't use it. Yeah. Which is really awesome because like dealing with like Dropbox discussion board submissions of 100 students is probably also going to blow their mind very quickly, or my limited storage. Okay. So unfortunately, we will have to deal with Dropbox for now, yeah? Until they figure out all their issues with this OneDrive, which I think is Microsoft. Everything from Microsoft sucks, right?
You're going to get people clapping.
All right, okay, fair enough. You noticed I'm working here on Microsoft side, yeah? So I should not say that. All right. One thing I wanted to show you, one thing your instructor gave to you already is this template InDesign file, right? Plus the thing. So I want to go quickly through some basics on InDesign to refresh your memory for those who haven't gone through it. Kind of like educate a bit on the way you work in InDesign. InDesign is actually a publishing and editing tool. Right? So it is not really meant for making drawings or anything, or producing content directly, although it's getting really better on it. But it was mostly designed for relaying content. Yeah? So it's kind of like Illustrator is not, because Illustrator is actually a tool that is made for drawing. Yeah? Ryan, remember when I was talking about what software is good at, right, originally? It's because the way it was originally intended, that's how its core is built at. Yeah? And so when somebody's core is not built for something, then it's like, it's not necessarily always the best solution to do it. So, but what it is very good at, it is organizing large content areas. And that's why I personally prefer InDesign quite a bit over other file-related software. So in this folder, you can see this is the unzip folder. You got the zip file, I would assume. Has everybody gotten the zip file in the other class? Yeah, and those who are not in the class right now, it's going to be useful in any case. Yeah, and just walking a bit through some basics in InDesign and related stuff. Yes, Alejandro.
Should we download InDesign CS6 or DC?
Creative Cloud is what you want to do, because when you subscribe to the Creative Cloud, you already get the most recent update. Yeah? Yeah. I'm trying to figure it out to lower versions for you guys mostly, because some of you might have signed up to it earlier, but it's getting really tough because like it's been about 4 years or something like this, or 2 years since we're out of the physical updates, so it's mostly Creative Cloud. So I think everybody's there, but I can show you some tricks how you can open files up that newer versions, or actually how you save out the file from a newer version to make it readable with the newer version. I'm quickly going to go through all that right now. But what I want to encourage you first before you do this, because I saved actually out the packaged files, so I'm actually packing all the links and all the stuff into it, unless I nested it into it, means that actually you have to do some work before you open the file. One of those works are what? Actually install it. Now, downloading alone doesn't do it. You gotta double click on the file and actually install it. Okay? Adobe has become a bit smarter lately, because in the past you would have to close the Adobe application to actually recognize the new fonts. It gets a bit better now. The problem is, however, if you open an InDesign file without the red font in it, and I think I might have not even installed all the fonts here right now, so we can test it. is it gives you a quick warning at the beginning. And as you are a diligent student and very attentive, you usually click OK. Yeah? Which is not the way to do this. Yeah, so I guess I have the font installed in this particular case, but usually you get a little warning label on which font you want to substitute, and then by default it gives you whatever it is, like what is it called? This weird font that nobody uses. This Myriad. You're like, who would use Myriad? So that's kind of like the font that usually replaces all the fonts that are in your document. That happens in Illustrator. So most of you actually submitted Myriad font kind of like submissions because you did not care enough to install my nicely purchased expensive OTFs. Yeah. And I don't know if you know who designed Universe. I told this to my students already, so they don't know. But Adrian Fultiger, Swiss graphic designer, and actually very known for other work. He's very recognized in the science and symbol science kind of like problems. So he was one of those people who designed the fonts. And he was meant to actually be a contemporary neo-grotesque font, and I'm not going to go too far into font stories, but you should know fonts are good. It was designed in 1957, and it's a very good font. Yeah? It has a lot of detail for a grotesque font. Grotesque means it doesn't have any serif slaps or any of those type of things. And I don't know if you know all those things. I'm going to tell you a little side story. Bob might have actually told you, but I like my little side story, so bear with me. Most of the fonts come actually out. Yeah?
Can you open it so we can look at it when you're talking about it?
The font?
Yeah.
All right. You have it, so you should have it. So it's here in the document font.
Wasn't Helvetica derived from that one too, from Universe?
Helvetica came first.
Yeah.
Helvetica was developed in the 20s, yeah? Or actually even earlier. Maybe early 1900s was the first version. It was, I think, it was Untitled Chapter, was it called back, yeah? Because it was based on types. And so originally a font, yeah, but what you see very often is, like, for example, an N looks in a grotesque font like this, yeah? Has a relatively consistent thickness on these elements, yeah? And has no little tabs or something like this. In a serif font or sans serif, yeah, both of them are possible. Sans serif is kind of the hybrid. It gets those little slabs on top, yeah? Like those little slabs. And sans serif maintains its thickness throughout. Serif fonts very often change the thickness because serif come out of using brushes or pens actually that had a certain thickness. So a serif pen usually looked like this and had a cut off slab. So this thickness would usually determine this thickness. Yeah? And the little slabs come out of it resting, and then a lot more ink flows into it, and so it starts spilling out of this. So the slabs become an aesthetic. And a lot of the slabs, especially when you look at like Schwabacher or something like this, which is an old German fonts, come out actually out of woodblock chisel. Yeah? And so a lot of these type of things determine what type of font we have. So we have the sans serif, yeah, which is half serif. This would be a serif. Serif also usually have an orientation, whereas with pen you would write in an orientation by hand. Yeah, this comes out from hand. And grotesque, yeah, usually are completely devoid of those type of things. Just a little there. There's a lot more to this because it has to do with chiseling and pen techniques. It's a lot. It's technological development. That's how fonts come together. That's why architects love them. But it's a very elegant font, and you can see there is some quite nice little features that make it actually very nicely legible. One is it has on the N's and B's and R's, it has a bit of a change in the thickness of the reading to it. Yeah, it also stops pretty nicely. And the A's, as you can see, usually the fonts can be very quickly determined also by where you look at an A or an A or a full A. Yeah. Then there's K's that are usually different because there's this even those spelling out tapes. Yeah. Yeah. So these are the different writing stuff. There's cues always different. Yeah. There's this one. There's the one with the tilt to it. Then there's one that goes straight down and so forth. These are the usual typical differences where you can very quickly actually identify fonts. Easy. Yeah. So if you get an eye to it, these would be the typical letters where usually a lot of work goes into it. But I'm just telling you this. So let's go. Let's install this font. Mine is, I think, installed already. Yeah, no, I don't have whatever. This one, Mittelschrift, Austria, is a much newer font, and you can see it's a very bold, more stretched font by itself. When you look at the O, it actually has straight portions to it rather than just being round or oval. So this comes out of the Dean family. That's what most of the Dean families have, yeah, those stretched letters, because Dean is actually a template font. Yeah, it's called Deutsche Industrienorm, which is the German industrial norm, and they norm those type of things so they can be reproduced either with a template or in lecture set, lecture tone, and all those type of things. So they're all completely standardized and norm. This is an Austrian offshoot of it, which is much younger, that came out like a couple of years ago. It's very elegant. Yeah. So just a little kind of like fun part to this. Yeah. So I haven't installed it yet, but I'm installing this right now. So when we go into InDesign, and I quickly want to point this out to you. The most important thing is obviously how your pages are structured. Yeah. What people do like to do very quickly, and I want to just remind you, is there's a master page, okay, tab basically, and a layout tab. Yeah? These are two different things. Yeah? The master pages are where you basically produce page templates, yeah? And the other one is the other one. I know you should know this. Yeah? I'm just pointing this out because a lot of you try to actually edit the master pages or duplicate the master pages and just work in those. Not the way to go about it. What you want to do is you want to just pull in your master pages quickly down here, and wherever it is, then it starts adding up. And if you want to edit it, then you can see this in this drawing here. This one has a couple of boxes already in it. They are now firmly linked to the master page layout already. Yeah? So I cannot just click on any of those rectangles. And I need to also make sure that not my layers are locked. I have only the layers locked that are concerning our colors. Yeah, so those are not those. But like there's an image layer here. And the only way I can unlock it, I think it's Shift Control. Shift Control unlocks it from the master template. Then you can drop images into it, or you can modify it. Then beforehand you can do it. Yeah? But this also means if you now drag another template on top of it, which you could, yeah, this particular box, text box, image box, or whatever you call it, yeah, will stay in this place. Yeah? So it will not delete it. Yeah? Because otherwise, if you drop in, go on your pages, and it's dropped in like this one, for example, just a picture there. Yeah? This one in, and now I want to replace it with white one here, for example. I can just drag it on top of it and it switches it out. Yeah? This is really useful, yeah? Especially when you work in very minute master differences. Like let's say, okay, you have your page numbering on one end and page numbering here. You want to have multiple typo pages, or you have multiple useful pages. And that's what I set up for you guys. Yeah? So we have those master pages here. So you can just drag and drop in and produce as many documents as you want based on those pages. Yeah? Just want to remind you, this is the way to go about it. You don't, and this is also a nice way to have consistency in like, oh, this is where always my title is. So I don't need to constantly move it around or something like this. This is always in the same location. Yeah? It always comes in with the right, there's no text in it, but I already set characters down something. Yeah? And I will show you how to do that. Yeah? You guys know this already, right? Yes? I don't. It makes sense? Okay, now it should be common practice. I just want to walk you a bit through. So let's do this. Let's start over quickly because I'm going to show you. Like, see how did we do? I quickly want to walk you through one exercise of this. Would this make sense to you for all of you? So we can check what you know and what you don't know. Okay? That'd be a nice idea. Okay? Relaxing. Okay? Where's the folder that I have? Where is my folder? There we go. So I don't have any images right here right now, so I'm going to steal some from the internet. But basically, this is what you saw. Right? You saw this PDF, like where we had like certain layouts and so forth and so forth. I'm going to explain everything from fleet and tipping methodologies quickly to you, so we're all clear on those terminologies. Yeah? I don't. Does anybody have a graphic design degree of you guys? Okay, so I might need to explain to you terminology here. I'm gonna try my best to do that. Yeah, a lot of it has in graphic design. Most of the stuff comes actually out of very old traditional techniques and methods. Yeah, because printing and graphic are some of the oldest businesses around. Yeah. Okay, so I'm starting a new file. What you see here is already, it's like we can choose when we go by new, whether we're going to doing a document, a book, a folio, or a library. Don't be fooled. If you do most likely your portfolio or your type of document for like a class like this, you would start a single document. When you do a book, you might want to have multiple documents in your book. For example, you have like 100 students contributing to one book. That's where you collate those into one file together. And so the book file is basically an organizer of all those files, updates the page numbering, cross-references, and so forth. If you're clever enough, then it also fixes all your reference numbers and where they're located on which page and all those things. It's actually pretty sophisticated on that level. When you do a folio or a library, it's kind of very similar, but a bit more minute. And you can, of course, also produce documents that automatically update your website directly, like website news pages or like blogs or any type of things. And at the same time, you can generate a print document. That's how far you can go with this ultimately. It's really cool. And actually, it even allows you to update your file almost automatically. You don't even need to touch it. You can actually have a Word or an Excel sheet directly linked to it, and every time you change your Word document, it automatically updates your InDesign file, and then automatically updates your website directly. So that's actually pretty cool. I don't think we're going to go there, but you have those tutorials on LinkedIn. Yeah? So there's a lot of tutorials about web publishing and publishing with InDesign. If you guys want to get really smart about this is a really cool software to work with this way. It has its own little weird things that I never understood why they are complicated, otherwise it's pretty cool. Yeah? Okay, so we're gonna quickly, for the common purpose, quickly start the document. Yeah. So here you get these funny things here going on. So since we're going square, we want to make sure we're going by a certain size of inches and so forth and so forth. Yeah. Now this comes here in picas, I think, yeah, which is, I don't know where, it's print related, yeah, but not very commonly used anymore, so it's a funny thing that it defaults to it. So you can just type in our case, 7.5 inches, 7.5 inches, which equals to 45 picas, basically, yeah. I want to make sure I have only one column. One thing I want to uncheck, unless I do actually a book, yeah? And even then I will uncheck this, just why. I don't like facing pages. This can get tricky sometimes, especially when you do page numbering or I want to have full images over an extra spread. These things are a bit niftier. Yeah? I'll leave it on for now because I also want to show you how to deal with it. Yeah? Just for FYI, this is where you check whether it's going to be this layout or this layout. Yeah? In your master pages, when you set facing pages, it also pops up always like a spread. Yeah? usually not a problem, but you're not usually setting yourself up to work with gutter and bleed properly. So that's why I'm going to explain this quickly to you. Yeah. So, okay, gutter. I just mentioned this. The gutter is actually the piece where the book gets bound. Yeah. Yeah, where it gets laminated or stitched, like traditional techniques of stitching, saddle stitching, actually, which is its own technique. I think it was originally developed in Asia, I think Korea, actually. Yeah. And it's its own form of stitching around an edge and a couple of sheets together. It's usually, originally, your paper was handmade. Yeah. It was basically, and it's not very difficult to make paper by hand. Actually, I think they even have classes for that. Yeah. It's a fun class. It's a fun process, but they would be basically made into a rectangular kind of like what do you call it, like a bath or something like this. Because it's a liquid process, and then it's get dried and so forth and so forth. But basically, and then you fold it over its edge or its seam, and then you would stitch a couple of those folded pieces together. That's why we have to have a gutter, because you lose actually a lot of real estate by the stitching and the laminating process. And if you open up the book, you can see this. Sometimes you really want to scan it, and then you spread it past the tube, kind of like duration, and suddenly you have those blank pages. You might have noticed this on some cheap binding. Yeah? So that's what the gutter is for and what it's used for. It's useful to use it, especially when you work with spread. Yeah, which you might do with, say, you go to a senior project of any other, like for Lauren or somebody else, where you might have a lot of, or for your own portfolio. That's it. Yeah, you might have a great portfolio still. Yeah. When you do a spread, you might actually adjust the gutter carefully, so you actually spread and it opens up reads well enough, and you don't lose like 2 inches of the middle piece. Yeah, that's because you're doing a weird thing. Yeah. So that's why we have a gutter. So I'm not treating this right now, the gutter, because this is just general adjustment. It depends usually on how many pages you have, yeah, and what type of stitching and printing you pursue. The thickness of the paper, the weight of the paper in this case, because in paper we don't talk about thickness, we talk about weight. And the size of the book, the thickness of the book in here determines your spine and ultimately also your gutter. Yeah? Yes, the opposite side of the gutter is actually the spine. What we do want to do now is, though, however, usually we want to observe margins on your papers. Yeah, that's very useful because you don't want to go past your margins, because if you really cut your sheets, you might lose something and so forth. Yeah, and at the same time, I'm going to check mark here this guy here, the bleeds and slug. Yeah, the bleed determines usually how far you need to go past it, yeah, in order to, when you cut something, not get like little white strips or edges. So you actually make usually your images a bit larger than your actual page in order to get a full nice cut when you cut it back. Yeah, you might have noticed this. You might not always put the ruler properly on. You might have some sheets stacked because you're in a rush and you're already 10 minutes late to your review. And then you try to cut it, and then it, oh shoot, it goes off the rail, and you try to fix it, and then it kind of wobbles, and then there's a little bit white, and there's a little bit image. Well, not cool, yeah. So that's why we use bleed. Usually, in contemporary printing techniques, and you might have printed already on your own, it's like an 1/8 of an inch, or even less than an 1/8 of an inch. But 1/8 of an inch is a good number for you to remember for bleed, yeah. If you're gonna be very sloppy, do 1/4 of an inch, but like 1/8 of an inch is good. So we can actually type in here 0.125 inches. Yeah. Slug is something similar. Slug has to do with an inner kind of like goes more towards an inside bleeding, but we're not gonna go. I usually don't even use the slug settings at all, and I do print a lot of those. Yeah. And you can also obviously save here your presets. Yeah, that might help you in future references to save the presets. So we already changed back to letters. So let's go back to what did we say? 7.5, right?
Yeah, 45.
Is this useful when I do this like this?
Yes. Yes.
not because I don't want to, I do want to do those things over and over again, because supposedly you know all those things. Right? Okay, so what comes out here, now we have basic pages. You get the little first page, half title. That's what it's called. The first page is usually a half title, because it's not full page. Usually reserved for repeating the book title in case you rip off the cover or something like this, or for some graphics. And then your master page obviously shows up as another page. So when you pull it in, it automatically makes you a spread. And now you can mess with the spread, and there's some settings where you can actually avoid messing with the spread. That it always ties them together. I actually don't remember where those settings are, so I will probably consult the help file right now, but there are some settings for this. So it might be in the panel options, I think. Master page, there you go. I just right-clicked here on panel options. Panel means like these are the options for this particular spread panel. Here you want to fix your masters so you can kind of like flip them around, especially when you work with colors, it might get really kind of like iffy. So what we see right now, did it do a bleed now or not? Where did it go?
You didn't put it.
Did I not click on the bleed?
No.
Did I undo it? Okay, let me quickly double check. So I can actually go back here now into my document setup and readjust this. Oh, I must have lost my bleed. So I'm tapping 0.125 inches. Make sure it's coming up on everything because automatically it locks all the sides to it. That's perfectly fine. Preview it. Now I'm getting here my bleed edge. This is my margin edge. This is my sheet edge. So that's pretty straightforward. So that's very useful. So I don't even start working here until I have my master set up. What I typically do is like I'm creating multiple masters, and you can see those masters when you right click on them, you get here some options, master options for A and so forth. So there's different prefixes that are completely arbitrary. These are all for your choosing. I usually, this is the way I group my master pages in case I have different sizes, for example, in my master. I quickly switch here to say everything A has the size 7.5, 7.5, and they all relate to each other. Everything B is a different size, kind of like related master set. So I can do this here. I can also base my current master on the previous master. In this case, we don't have any others, but this means basically all the stuff that is in the previous master actually drops automatically in there. So you get basically, you can, if you have some additions to your masters, this is a good way to play it.
Call him.
So if you want to
Axel.
discrete different masters, let's say a title page,
Axel.
a page for text, and a page for images, that's what we're creating.
I was wondering how you got that menu.
Oh. Thank you for asking. Right click, master options. Thank you. Master options. It's right there. You have it?
No.
You can also get it here on the pull down up there. You guys have all this panel, like the pages panel up?
Yes.
Yes? Okay. You can also get it here.
Oh, I got it. Yeah.
You click on the master, right click, options. Right, I need to.
It has to be in the dark area. On the dark area.
Like this, a
Oh,
master.
yeah, there you go. I need to select it first. That's all.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah. Okay, my bad. Okay, master. So we don't need to. So you guys can just.
You ain't even getting Alex? I got you on camera.
Okay, help me out here. I'm trying to be good at wait. Okay. So the way I'm starting to set up a document, and this is also the way your document you receive is set up. I'm gonna start first with laying out where most of my content is going, whether I'm using images, text, or something. Yeah. So I can actually in the master page I make a bit of a dummy page. Yeah. So I'm going here, say okay, I'm gonna put all over the thread, and I can bring from bleed to bleed basically, and say this is gonna be an image. Yeah. Make sure that I go into my layers though and rename these layers as images. Usually I want to put text on top of my images, and that's why I'm using my layers actually, because I want to make sure that whatever I do, maybe I throw another graphic in between, or let's say some color in between. Yeah. I'm gonna put my text on a separate layer. That makes it easier for me to pick and select. But that's just common practice you will have in Illustrator and everything else. So I make immediately a new layer and say these are my color panels. Oops. Click on another new layer. This is all down here, the create new layer tab. Yeah. And this one option is going to be text. Okay. So make sure that I keep my images select, so that's fine actually, and this is good. So now I'm going to go lock this layer, so I don't need to touch this guy anymore. Yeah. And I'm throwing in some text now. So I'm going to pull in, actually I can make any type of rectangle and reassign it as a text document. Yeah. Or just drag, oops. Sorry, I need to go to my active layer. I need to activate this layer and lock this one. And I can just quickly drag a rectangle that gives me my text box in. You know that already. Yeah? So let's make this a title sheet here. So I'm moving this down. I made a copy with holding down the Alt key, as you guys know already in those software pieces. I'm going to make it fit to here. So it's the same way you're moving around. Holding down the Shift key allows you to pan, the space key to pan. Holding a right click, yeah, pretty much the same way. Yeah, it's Adobe generic movements. Yeah. So let's go into the text panel. Let's click on it. Let's quickly also, for now, just to test it, let's go on the middle shift. Yeah. Oscar D. Let's immediately make this a large one. Let's go up to 60. Let's call this. This will be our title. So I'm already seeing here that it doesn't fit entirely onto the page. So I have a couple of options which I can pull up if I go into my character settings here, yeah, which is Control T or Apple T or Command T, whatever you call it. Oops. Change the typo. So here I'm getting all this stuff. This is going to be interesting for you. It's the kerning. Yeah. Kerning is a term coming out of old printing techniques. It's the spacing between the letters. Yeah. Originally, this was an art form. Now it's a computational kind of like scenario. So what it does, because it's a balancing, and Bob might have explained this to you already, that you balance your letters the way they sit next to the other letters. That's why fuller letters have a bit more space to the next fuller, like an O and the D are always a bit further spaced. Yeah.
Is there a different name for this moves vertically, or is that also different?
It's called tracking and kerning. That's what the different types of names is. And there are other terms for this too that are older. I think this is the more common one because it comes out of digital printing. Yeah. So we do want to create, see, you see this is a very tightly spaced, but the spaces are actually very wide here, so we can actually quickly increase a bit our kerning. And you want to, whenever you set the body text in general, yeah, in order to be able to manipulate it, you want to go at least to 15 or 20 in your kerning first place. Yeah? Sorry, just made a mistake. So now I can downsize my letter size in order to say, okay, I want to fit that many letters actually into it. So I think it's the, oops, no. You can use the shortcuts on the keyboard, which I don't remember right now all of them. Actually, this here in the tracking, I can also I can reduce the relationship vertically between the fonts, which I also like to adjust usually, especially when I only use lowercase. I usually like to go tighter than the automatic one. Yeah, so it looks more blockier. Yes, madam. All right, character styles on the window, type and tables, typography. Yeah, character. Sure. Okay, so here I'm gonna then start reducing a bit the font size. I go like a bit down, 48 suits me well. Then I make sure that I'm kind of aligning it on the side that I want to align it. In this case, I'm aligning it right. I could also kind of like play with other things here, but oops.
Fonts that want to be downloaded, how would already everything preset?
You can preset that. Yeah, I will show you. That's what I'm doing right now.
No, your fonts that was you're gonna, the one you're gonna download and install.
Yeah, you haven't done it yet?
Wouldn't it have everything preset? Like.
No, the font is independent from the document. What I'm doing is I'm adjusting for each of the text, for a certain text, I'm just adjusting styles. That's why I wanted to quickly go through, because character styles and paragraph styles is going to save your life if you have to write things. And it's really cumbersome in pages. It's kind of idiotic in Word, but it's pretty good in there. But Word is good on other things. I have to admit, Word is really great. Pages needs to have some work. Okay. So we are still a bit large, so I want to increase a bit the font size. Let's go to 55 here, so we are a bit better here. Let's just leave it for the sake of it. Yeah. So I can obviously change the color of the text and stuff like this. I think I don't need to show you this. You guys know we use swatches typically, right? Yeah. So what I can do actually, I'm going here to my swatches, quickly loading my swatches under those swatches. Yeah? And since I made swatches for everybody, I should have them actually somewhere in here. You don't have them, I do. Somewhere. Oh, really? Okay, it might have not updated, but basically I usually save out an ASE file that I can hand over to Photoshop, InDesign, Illustrator, all the things that open up the same swatches, and so it's actually really nice to use. Yes. Sign? Oh shit, you're dead. Alright, okay, great. Okay, let's go quickly on this. Okay.
Oh shit.
Okay. Okay, so now that I did this, what I'm quickly going to do now, I'm going to show you what usually you want to do is you go here in the window, go on the styles, go here character styles. So what you can do is when you highlighted it or selected it, you can just quickly click on new and it makes automatically a style from your setting. You can click on it and you can name it, you can call it typo din, yeah. And then go on the format, you can say, okay, when I use this, I can use also optical metric turning, that's all things tracking, letting and tracking, that's what it is, sorry, turning, yeah. That's what I typically do, yeah. Captions, titles, body, I'm writing font styles for everything. So I can just click on the text box wherever I go for the text name, it changes it automatically. Yeah. Yeah, that's what it is. Oh, I guess what it is, so there will be more showing up. So, hey, I'm making another one here. And for example, I'm using a different character. So I'm using here, let's say, that bank Gothic, which I hope you never use. And use it with a different letting, for example, a different size. Yeah. 48. Click OK. So now I can switch between those two titles very quickly. Yeah, well, body text is for body text, yeah, which means it's the main body of text. Title is that. If you can actually click on it, it gets automatically highlighted. So when you look here, you have your project name and some buttons and fonts. So when you go in here and you drop in your text, it should automatically. It automatically switches to project name.
Yeah.
That's what it's really fine. So if you want to change it, you can change it. Yeah. Right?